Welcome to the OMG Tarot Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, aka OMG Tarot. I'm recording this on May 20th, the first day of Gemini season, which feels very apropos for today's topic, the lovers. Because, as I'm going to explain more in a little bit, Gemini is the zodiac sign that the lovers is associated with. But before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit about the lovers themselves. Who are these people? We take a look at the card and we see three figures. Down on the bottom, we see a man and a woman, and then up above, we see an angel with their arms outstretched. In fact, the two figures standing on the ground look quite a bit like Adam and Eve, don't they? Especially with that green snake right behind the woman. Well, as we'll talk about in a little bit, that's by design. That's baked into Pamela Coleman Smith's original design. And also, as just a note, I realize in previous episodes of this podcast I've been referring to the deck as the Rider-Waite deck. That's the traditional old school name for it, and you'll probably hear it a lot. However, within the tarot community, a lot of people have started calling it the Waite-Smith deck, or even the Smith deck. That's in honor of Pamela Coleman Smith, the woman who illustrated the deck. And she should be honored. It's her work. If I slip up and call it the Rider-Waite deck, it's a force of habit. I'm not trying to minimize Pamela Coleman Smith's contributions at all. In fact, without her, we wouldn't have that deck, or any of the thousands and thousands of decks that are based on it today. But when I started reading tarot cards, people really weren't having that discussion yet. It was still largely, almost exclusively even, called the Rider-Waite deck. So, just a side tangent on if you encounter different names for the same original deck, they're all referring to the same set of 78 illustrations that were illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith. So, getting back to the lovers, who are they? They're a partnership. They're not two people who have just recently met and are just getting to know each other. They're a long-term relationship where they've grown together and they've really built something that's greater than the sum of its parts. As you can see from the two very distinct trees behind them, each brings something unique to the table. And how do you build a big, strong, long-lasting relationship? Well, you need to communicate. And that's really at the core of this card. This card, it's about a lot of things, and the central theme through all those things is communication. Remember, it's the Gemini card. And if you know anything about Geminis, they don't stop talking. But to put that concept into the language of this card, let's take a look at how communication is represented here. And to do that, we have to kind of play with this Adam and Eve symbolism, because it shows us a lot about communication. How do we share communication within our partnership? If you're not familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, and I'm really going to paraphrase this because I'm not a biblical scholar, the short and dirty is, among all the trees in the Garden of Eden, there was exactly one that they weren't allowed to eat the fruit from, and that was the tree of knowledge. If they ate from this tree, they would gain all this knowledge that was previously off limits to them. The devil enticed Eve to eat the fruit. Eve enticed Adam to eat the fruit. They ate it, and exactly what they were told would happen, happened. They all of a sudden had brand new insight and brand new knowledge that previously they were told, no, this isn't for you. And now they can't go back. Now that they know things, they literally cannot live in the old blissful state that they had previously lived in, which was symbolized by their home, the lush, amazing, super safe Garden of Eden. When we look at the card, we see how the woman is looking up toward the angel with her arms outstretched, almost like she's looking to receive something from him. Perhaps she's receiving the divine insight and all that knowledge that she's going to pass on to her partner over there. Because remember, this card is associated with Gemini, which is the third of our three air signs, and the air signs are all about knowledge and insight and understanding. And bringing that knowledge and any skills you've developed through it to a partnership, so that way you're contributing something unique and the other person there is contributing something unique, and together we grow and we flourish. Now, you might be wondering, what if I don't want to read this card through that Judeo-Christian lens that involves knowledge of the story of Genesis? You really don't have to, and I think that in understanding this card, we kind of have to look at when Pamela Coleman Smith designed it. She was designing these cards right around the turn of the 20th century, and she was designing them in a way that she wanted the people reading them and working with them to really understand what each card means. So, to readers then, and I think also to a large extent readers now, they'll see this imagery and be able to relate it to, okay, who are these people, or at least these figures, an allusion to? And what are the main themes and lessons from their story? This is also why a lot of modern decks ditch this Adam and Eve imagery. Not everybody who interacts with a tarot deck is coming from the same place culturally, so you can't reasonably expect everybody to have that same cultural framework to read the deck with. And that's one of the limits of working with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It's very much a product of its time and place. I still think it's probably the best deck to start out with simply because it's so prevalent. You're going to see references to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck pretty much anywhere that you interact with tarot. It's also very easy to isolate individual symbols in each card and really hone in on why did she choose that symbol to communicate what this card needs to communicate. So, I think that while it's a great deck to start on, if it's really not resonating with you, move on to a different deck once you're a bit more comfortable reading tarot. I have so many decks. I love all different decks. I think this is a really good one to focus on, especially as we walk through symbol by symbol in each card. Because this is also a card that, if you look back in time to versions that predate the Smith-Waite Tarot, we can actually see it's changed quite a bit. So this is actually kind of a cool piece of tarot history. Take a look at the version of the Lovers from a Marseille deck. And if you want to quick Google it, it's spelled Marsielle. The Tarot de Marseille was a deck published in about, and remember this is all kind of approximate, we can't pinpoint it to one specific deck or specific print date, but printed around the 15th century and then really gained steam in Europe in the following centuries. And in a lot of ways, its illustrations are forerunners to the Waite-Smith deck that we're working with here. It's a man standing between two women with an angel kind of hanging over him, looking down and pointing an arrow that looks a lot like Cupid's arrow directly at the guy's head, as the guy kind of looks like, which one do I choose? The angel, which we can assume is Cupid, is blindfolded and just deliberately just shooting that arrow right at the guy who has to pick. So that theme of choosing partners and choosing who am I going to share my life with, I think that having that knowledge is really can help you understand the core themes of this card and really kind of pull in that it's about partnerships and growing together, but also largely about who am I choosing to do that with and what am I actively bringing to the table. And also, perhaps you might choose a partner based on what they're bringing to the table. There's kind of a theme of discernment here and determining, all right, well, who's really a good fit for me? What knowledge am I opting into versus having it just dropped in my lap and, oh, now I know that. So, yeah, I know it was a little bit of a tangent, but I thought you might appreciate some tarot history. Let's take it back to the card. So, we've got our figures, we've got our angel. We've also got a really big, bright yellow sun up at the top of the card in the background, and down the bottom over on our horizon, we've got a huge mountain. We've got all the way in the background this big red mountain that seems to really contrast with the green ground that the two people are standing on. Behind each person, there's a tree, but the guy's tree is on fire. He doesn't seem all that concerned about it, though. And I think we can read this fire symbolically. Now, we've spoken a bit about earth and water symbolism in tarot, but fire is passion. Fire is virility and physical strength and the drive to get things done. So, you can interpret the tree behind the guy as he's the one who brings that to this relationship. He's the one who's bringing the passion and the desire and the drive to take that knowledge that the lady is getting from that angel and really turn it into something actionable. I guess he's the doer in this relationship. Taking it back over to the tree behind the woman, the one with the fruit and the snake on it, the fruit and the lush, lovely trees could be symbolic of the element of earth, which is the element of grounding and stability and tangible material things. Perhaps while he's the energetic doer and action guy in this relationship, maybe she's the grounded one. Maybe she's the one who's a bit more down to earth, and while she might be the one receiving the insight, and then he's the one who takes it and runs with it, maybe she's the one who keeps it on track and ensures that things actually come to fruition. So you see how it's really about, all right, how do we each work together and how do we, kind of give and take our own unique strengths to really kind of create something effective and productive together. There's some thought in the tarot community about who this angel is, too. A lot of people think it's Raphael. That would make sense, given that Raphael is considered the air angel and associated with things related to the element of air, like we'd mentioned about understanding and knowledge. I've also seen Raphael referred to as the divine matchmaker, which would make sense in this card that's really focused on partnership. I think that snake there serves to just allude to the devil in the story of Genesis, how he turned into a snake in order to tempt Eve with the fruit, and how we can extrapolate the theme of choices from this symbol. We also, right at the base of the angel, we see clouds that are kind of similar to the clouds that we see in a bunch of the ace cards. We also see those style clouds on the Seven of Cups, and I think we see them elsewhere in the minor arcana. I don't have my deck right out in front of me right now, but I've been looking at it a long time. This is symbolic of the element of air and how something's really an idea and a concept. It's not really down on the ground. And I'm interpreting this relationship between this angel up in the air with the woman, really, she's symbolizing Earth over here, kind of interpreting the angel, as she's bringing that knowledge down to Earth. She's giving it something to stabilize it and really taking these ideas kind of out of the idea zone and making them tangible. I also don't want to ignore that big, bright, beautiful sun behind the angel. The sun right here reminds me a lot of the sun in the Sun card. And in both cases, it's just a big, bold, yellow, bright sun. And at least over in the Sun card, it symbolizes living without inhibition and just being your true, creative, all of yourself showing up just right here in the spotlight. And I think there's a couple different ways to interpret the sun here. You could, if this symbol speaks to you as a symbol of living without care and inhibition, kind of that bold, bright, but ignorance is bliss. Maybe we read this as that's the life that the two figures were living before they got in touch with the angel and received all this new knowledge. Because if you think back to the biblical story, that's what happened after they ate the fruit. They realized, oh boy, we're naked, and we didn't realize that was a problem until now. But now it's a problem. Or perhaps this other interpretation resonates more closely with you, that this is the bright enlightenment that comes from their contact with this angel and receiving all the knowledge after eating the fruit. That's the thing about tarot, is you can search the internet and you can speak to lots of different readers, and you'll hear a lot of different interpretations for the same symbols on these cards. Tarot has a subjectivity to it, which some people really, really love because that enables them to really kind of explore with their imagination and what their intuition's telling them. Others find it a little bit too ambiguous, and they're like, all right, but I need this to mean something, and I need it to mean something specific so I can check my work. And nothing's really, there's not a right way or a wrong way to do this. I'd say if you're in that latter category, you might like astrology better. Astrology has a lot more hard and fast and specific rules, so if you're finding that the ambiguity and the subjectivity of tarot isn't really your bag, you might really like astrology. Hey, I like them both, but I like them both for different reasons. As for me, I tend to interpret the sun a little more so in the latter way, in the sense that these two figures can really express themselves more effectively because now they have the knowledge and they have the vocabulary that enables them to do that. And I know this deviates quite a bit from the biblical story of Adam and Eve, which is why it's important to remember that the figures in this card are an allusion to Adam and Eve. They're not supposed to be a literal depiction. So then we have our last symbol, that mountain on the horizon. It's really tall. And in tarot, mountains symbolize obstacles to overcome. Think back to the Fool and how he's kind of dangerously thinking about, oh, am I going to fall off this cliff? Oh, is the dog going to go with me? Well, that mountain that's his first hurdle to overcome and work through. And then think over to, say, the Eight of Cups, where we've got that solitary figure climbing up the mountain. They're doing the difficult stuff. It's not easy to do Eight of Cups stuff, which we'll talk about in a future episode. But over here, this mountain symbolizes that, yeah, there are plenty of obstacles that if you partner up with someone and you work together, you can overcome that too. I think these lovers are perfectly capable of getting over that mountain, but it's going to require some teamwork and it's going to require some strategy. If they do that, they'll achieve it, they'll climb that mountain. So before we get into interpreting the lovers in tarot spreads, let's drop it into the major arcana. It's number 6, which means it comes right after number 5, the Hierophant, and right before number 7, the Chariot. Sandwiched between these two cards, I think of the Lovers as knowing that, alright, you've gotten formal instruction, but now how are you going to apply that to your life? How are you, now that you're in the driver's seat, going to make good decisions using the knowledge that you've acquired? Because let's look back over the Hierophant. The Hierophant's a teacher and a mentor, but specifically a very, very by the book one. The Hierophant is didactic. It's where you learn your culture's values and what's expected of you. But it's very rigid, it's very straightforward. These are the expectations, and these are the lessons that you need to learn and carry forward with you. And that's very different from the divine insight that we see happening in the Lovers. Following this, the Lovers asks, how can I mesh with someone else and their unique background to really come together as a team? Because after that, then we have the Chariot, which it has a lot going on. Well, I guess don't they all? But in the Chariot, we have themes of moving forward and driving it to new places, but we also have themes of home and what is my home? Where is my environment? And really kind of pulling them together. How do I go and set up my own home? How do I really create that home for myself rather than just living in the home where I was born into? And for a lot of us, our first foray into setting up our own home is with a partner. So to build out this sequence here, 4, 5, 6, we start with formal instruction. We have your education. Then we have partnering. Your education plus someone else's equals we're a team. And then now that we've formed our team, how do we move forward and really create an environment that reflects our needs and really works for us and fits us? I think that maybe one of the overlooked lessons from the Lovers is learning a bit more about yourself through who are you as a partner, and then that really influences a lot of the things that are going on in the Chariot. So, when you're doing a tarot card reading and the Lovers comes up, what does it mean? Well, it means that partnership and communication really need to be at the forefront of what's going on. It can also, depending on what you asked, indicate that that is at the forefront of what's going on. Maybe it's indicating that you're really working through some things related to a partnership. And keep in mind, it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic partnership. I know the Lovers name kind of implies that it's a romantic relationship, but this is really about any kind of partnership. It could be a business partner, it could be you and a close friend, you and a sibling, even you and your relationship to, say, your community or your job, something that's not even human, but nonetheless requires contributions from you and in turn really enhances your life as well. How are you playing an active role in this partnership? And what is the exchange here? What are you putting out? What are you getting in? And where's the growth? What are you guys doing together? What's the goal that you're achieving? Because remember, that mountain. So let's run through an example or two. Let's say you want to know which classes to take next semester. So you shuffle, 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 and we've got the Lovers. So we know we're dealing with themes of partnership and communication and really choosing who you might partner with in order to enhance your life and move toward goals. Maybe this is the semester that you take an internship. I'm wondering if this might indicate cooperative education versus another course on campus. But now let's add a little bit, because the best tarot card readings are ones that involve 2 or more cards, because you flesh out the story. Like, can I really even read this in a vacuum? So let's pull another card. Oh, we've pulled the 9 of Swords. Okay, and in our Rider-Waite-Smith deck, that's the one where the woman is sitting up in bed, covering her face, and she's got all the swords kind of on the wall over there, and she's freaking out. Well, in the context of which courses should I take next semester, I'm always kind of wondering, do you need to examine if you're in the right relationship anymore? Because something with regard to this partnership is really stressing you out. Maybe you're not in the right program anymore. Maybe this isn't really the right course of study for you anymore. Or maybe if this is referring to an actual human relationship, maybe in order to take the courses that you need to really move toward your goals in school, you need to have a serious talk with your partner. Maybe, are they someone who kind of takes up all your time and doesn't really give you the encouragement and support you need to be successful in school? In any case, I think you need to examine why the relationship, whichever it is, whether it's you to your partner or you and your program, why is it stressing you out so much now that you're at the brink of, I gotta pick some classes for next semester? Or maybe, let's say your question is, I just started seeing someone. Is this relationship gonna go anywhere? And we shuffle, shuffle. Oh, the lovers! I would give that a resounding yes. I would, if someone asked me that question and we pulled up the lovers in their spread, I would be excited for them and I would say, you know what, I'm not saying it absolutely will happen because there's a lot of variables in life, and also we've literally just pulled one card, but I would say that this relationship has the potential to go the distance, and I would read that as, hey, bet on it, take a chance on it, bring all of yourself here, and come ready to really show up as a partner because I think that this person, they're showing up with that similar mindset. And if they had pulled the Two of Cups with it, that's just gravy. That's just, yes, yes, romantic, please show up, date them, love them, have a wonderful life together. I'm excited on your behalf. So, that's the lovers. That's number 6 in our major arcana, and that concludes our discussion on them. I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a 5-star review on Spotify. It really helps. Every podcaster says that, don't they? Ugh. Join me next time for a discussion about the devil. And in the meantime, give me a follow on Instagram. My handle is its_OMG_tarot. Or you can head over to my website and read my blog at omgtarot.com. Alrighty, catch you next time.